Welcome to Upwards, sponsored by the Microsoft Aspire Experience, where we share stories and insights to help you grow 1% better in your personal and professional life every episode. Here are your hosts for today's episode, Jake Hewson and Alex Kessel.
Welcome to today's episode of Upwards, everybody. Thank you for tuning in and listening. I'm Alex Kessel, joined here by my excellent supporter and co-host, co-creator, whatever co's there are, Jake Hewson. How you doing, Jake?
I'm doing great, Alex. It's funny, everyone. Alex always likes to say co-host, everything like that, but in reality, he's actually emphasizing the host, bold, underline, all caps, because I'm the one that runs this podcast. We have Vinh Giang for this episode, and Vinh is one of Alex and I's favorite people. He is an amazing communicator, international keynote speaker, and just the expert in all things communication. And it's a skill that we're really excited to showcase for all of you because it really is the tide that lifts or floats all boats. So I hope you all enjoyed the episode, and let's go ahead and roll it. Thanks so much for being here, Vinh. For anyone that doesn't know Vinh, he's got a pretty epic career and background. But Vinh, for anyone that's listening and doesn't know who you are and isn't familiar with your work, would you mind just giving us a quick background recap on who you are and what you're doing?
Yeah, look, I'll share a very high level. If I had to describe myself, I'd say I'm part entrepreneur, I'm part magician, and I teach communication skills. That's what I do. And I know the topic we're going to speak about is communication skills in this podcast. And I just wanted to say that it's fundamentally a skill that's metaphorically the tide that lifts all boats. Because if you learn this skill set, it improves every area of your life, your personal life and your professional life.
Well, thank you for joining us today on the show, Vinh. We're so excited to have you here. We're going to start off with a real lightweight question here. I think anybody who's heard you speak has noted that you carry a presence and a tone that is unique and that a lot of people wish they could have. And you've said that this is vocal mastery. Some of us have experienced this, but really before we dive into a lot of the different topics that we're going to cover with this, what is vocal mastery to you, if you could just kind of condense it?
I thought you said this was lightweight. That's not a very lightweight question at all.
Don't choke.
Yeah, no, I don't choke, Jake. No, I do. It depends if I eat peanut butter and it's very thick, and then I do choke. But look, I think what's really important to realize is that your voice is your personality, right? If we were just to shape the question a little, that's what your voice is. It's your personality. It's how other people perceive you. And I think a lot of the times, as you know, many of you who are listening, you're building your career and you're kind of starting your career, you've got to think about your personal brand a lot. And a lot of your personal brand comes down to your ability to use your voice. I mean, it's like us on this call just now. Before we jumped on the call, we met the great Stacey, and we all connected really well. We had a good laugh. And so much of that had to do with us being able to master the instrument that we all have, our voice, because this is the instrument we use to connect with others. It's so important to master that instrument because, like you said, people, when they meet me, they kind of notice that presence. And you can have presence, you can show presence with body language, but you can also show presence with your voice. So to me, it's definitely something you want to spend time on because it's the instrument you use throughout your entire career and life. And as you improve that, you improve your quality of life.
No, I think that's absolutely true. I think it's got such carryover for career and life, right? I mean, if we just think of it as life holistically, like your voice is something that is present with you always. You know, that's a key element to pay attention to across the board.
You've probably heard of studies that they've done in psychology where if you move your face and you smile, there's this famous study where they got people to hold a pencil between their teeth and kind of documented how they felt afterwards. And people all felt happier because by putting a pencil between your teeth, you kind of have to smile. So we kind of know that our body language can lead the way we feel, but it's also true with your voice. They've done studies on this too, in that if you use more melody in your voice, you'll feel happier. So not only can you use it to help others see you in a good light or in the right light that you want to be seen in, you can also use it to guide how you feel as well. So there's kind of multiple benefits to learning how to use our voice more in a more optimal way.
Yeah, I'm curious, Vinh, when you mentioned that our voice is our personality, and I think most people can agree that they know it's important to communicate well, whether in college or university, we go through a communications course, or just, I feel like it's pretty baseline. Most people know it's important to communicate well, but I feel like so few actually reach vocal mastery or go towards vocal mastery. So why do you think so few individuals actually work on their voice and learn how to communicate masterfully? Do you think it's because we just were never taught well, or it's too difficult, or it's such an important skill, but I feel like so few people actually are on that path to improving their voice?
Yeah, and the reason why, Jake, is, I mean, think back to your high school days or even university days. Was there a course that taught us the importance of vocal image? We often, in society, naturally, we have to think about, visual image, how I dress, how I do my hair, or how I look to the world. So we focus a lot on visual image, and visual image is relatively easy to attain because, well, I can buy the clothes, I can buy the shoes, I can buy the hair products, right? I can buy these things. But when it comes to vocal image, during our teens and our early adult years, nobody brings attention to it. And then also, it's something that you can't buy. You have to work at it. It's just kind of, I don't have a six pack, but it's kind of like mine's kind of consolidated into one. It's more efficient that way. But to me, it's kind of things you have to work for are more difficult, right? And I debate, is a six pack really that useful? Maybe, but I don't know. But to me, your voice is a muscle that's very important for you to train because you use it on a daily basis. Now, it's harder to work on your voice. It's easier to go and just buy that shirt. And one of the reasons it's harder is because, well, no one teaches us. It's not a part of mainstream curriculum. It really isn't. And it's so cool to see, a company like Microsoft bringing this kind of content now into their curriculum, where I was sharing with aspirers from all over the world the importance of using their voice and how to use their voice more effectively. So it's great to see companies like Microsoft now being conscious of this, because this ultimately makes you more confident, and that's why it's so powerful.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is one of those things that you can feel when you hear it in another person. I almost said when you see it. I guess you could see part of it too. But in that you mentioned kind of more confidence when you have vocal mastery, which just comes from knowing that you can effectively communicate your brand around you and just kind of emanate it. And naturally, with a little bit of confidence and directing some energy, you're going to go somewhere, right? You're going to hopefully achieve what journey you've been on. So, Vin, if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit, where has your communication journey taken you once you started pursuing this? What did you start seeing in your life, and how did this impact you?
Well, I mean, if you don't mind, I'd love to share with you why I started this journey as well.
Yeah.
Then I'll kind of tell you about what benefits came about. I just got sick of it, Alex and Jake. I got to a point in my life where I was always invisible. I was invisible to love interests when I was young. I just, wasn't as good looking as Jake and you. So as a result, it was more difficult for me. And I was invisible because I didn't speak up. I barely spoke up. I didn't speak up in class. I didn't speak up in professional situations. I may have had an idea. I just didn't speak up. And then the thing that killed me was when I was pitching my online business, and I was in a room full of entrepreneurs. I pitched my online business. I thought it was a bloody brilliant pitch. And the groups that really had a business that they weren't even post-revenue, they were pre-revenue, they got the funding. My business was post-revenue. We didn't get the funding. And that was like the last nail in the coffin, right? I went, no, I can't believe this is happening. I'm always invisible, and I just got sick of it. So to me, it was to the point of me losing my mind. That's how long it took before I decided to go on this journey. Then as I started to improve my communication skills, I was better able to articulate the value that I had to offer with my entrepreneurial business. So I started to experience success in business. And then not only that, it seemed like there were more opportunities in my life. It seemed like the opportunities were finding me, but yet the way I look at it is that when you improve your ability to communicate is like you being a lighthouse. And the better you're able to communicate, the stronger the light in your lighthouse, the stronger you're able to shine that light out into the world. And then the more opportunities are then attracted to you. And they're attracted to you because of your ability, not just because of, kind of this woo-woo, if you just think it, kind of things come to you. No, you have to radiate that. So to me, it's changed my life.
So something I did want to ask you, Vin, is I think it's absolutely true what you mentioned. We're not actually taught how to communicate well and build our voice. But for anyone that's watching this at Microsoft or externally, if they were someone that's early in career, or I mean, doesn't have to be early in career, but where does someone start to like actually start improving their voice?
Look, I think the first step in self-improvement when it comes to communication is self-awareness. The first thing I would say is, and you both know this very well, but this is for the listeners, just take yourself through a self-awareness exercise where you film yourself for 5 to 10 minutes and just video yourself, right? And use your phone and just film 5 to 10 minutes of you talking about something you love. You can talk about your day. You can talk about something you've just eaten or your favorite food. Content is not that important. We're kind of building self-awareness on vocal image right now. And then watch yourself back. And when you watch yourself back, you watch it back in 3 different ways. You review it in 3 different ways. The first time you review it, just listen to the audio. So turn the audio all the way up and turn your phone around and don't look at yourself, but just listen. And then take notes. What are some of the weaknesses? What are some of the limitations? What are some of the things you like about your voice? And just start to build that awareness as you listen to that 5-minute video, that 10-minute audio. And as you're listening to it, and if you listen to it for the entire period of time, you'll start to notice things about your voice you've never noticed before. Take notes. And then the second time you review it, put it on mute and just look at yourself. Do you move your face when you speak? Are you smiling? Are there some visual clutter? Is there some visual tics that you have that decrease the clarity of your message? Take notes. You wandering around aimlessly. Do you fold your arms? Do you put your hands in your pockets? And just take a bunch of notes and build self-awareness. And then the final one is get the video transcribed. And then read through the way you communicate. Is it concise? Do we beat around the bush? And then just kind of give yourself that time where you're building self-awareness so you understand how you're coming across to others. Because the moment most people see a video of themselves, they go, no, turn it off. That's not what I look like. Or oh, that's not how I sound. Turn the audio off. I hate the way I sound. That's how you sound. That's how you look. And we've got to stop hating on that and take the time to really sit down and accept it and work with it. And hey, if you don't like the way you sound, well, what can we do to improve that? Because there are so many things you can do, and it leads into the point where, a lot of my students, they ask me, Vin, is it actually possible to change the way you sound? Absolutely. Absolutely it's possible. Because all of a sudden I can turn a bit English, can't I? It's not hard, is it? Right? I can do it. Or I can go Australian on you and, I can really change the way I sound right now. And that's just me changing the way I move my mouth. Which means, to answer that question, can you change the way you communicate? Absolutely, because the way you communicate is a set of behaviors. And if you, ask another question, can you change behaviors? Absolutely you can, which means you can change the way you communicate. That's the first thing you can do, build self-awareness, and then from there, you begin the journey. And I'll give a quick example. So say you do this and then you find out, oh, damn it, I listen to myself, I speak too quietly. Then for the whole of the next week, just focus on raising your volume. One thing at a time so it doesn't overwhelm you. Just pick one thing and work on it for a week.
I think that's fantastic if you ask me. But I do have a quick little question. I do have a question about, I think it's so important to experiment. I mean, you're talking about if you think you speak too quietly, raise your volume. And that naturally brings out but what, do I just start screaming into a microphone? I mean, what am I like, guys, welcome to, I don't want to overwhelm my audience, but what advice do you have for somebody who is just starting to explore their voice and getting over their fear of potentially sounding different than they ever have, or doing something that they would normally think is very taboo for them?
I say when you explore your instrument and your voice, be willing to play. I mean, people play the piano, they play the violin, they play the guitar. They don't use the guitar, they don't use the piano. And I suggest the same thing while you're in exploration mode, is that play, be willing to be playful and explore it. There's a question that comes up where people say, oh, that's inauthentic, Vin. If I use my voice like this, that's inauthentic. I'm like, no, it's not. It's not inauthentic. It's just you're unfamiliar with using your voice in that way. You're just unfamiliar. Don't confuse the unfamiliar with inauthentic. It's just unfamiliar to you. And the only reason you feel concerned about doing this is because the people around you already have preconceived ideas about how you should sound and how you should look. So what you got to do is find what they call neutral ears. And neutral ears are people who have no preconceived ideas of who you are and how you should sound. So if you want to use a bigger volume, then next time you go and get some food, change the restaurant you often go to. And there's a bunch of neutral ears in there. And when you're ordering, Try doing it in an English accent. No, don't do that. Just use a louder voice. Just go, hey, I'd love to have, I'd love to have the pasta with the chili, please. I'm just very hungry. Sorry about that. And just try it and play. Just play. So to me, what's important is that you play. And don't be afraid to be a bigger version of yourself. Just like you said before, Alex, you immediately were concerned. I don't want to overwhelm my audience. Also, remember, don't underwhelm them as well. Right? Don't be afraid to be a bigger version of yourself. When I get my students to do this, they always say, Vin, was I being a bit too much? And I go, no, you're being just enough. And it's more difficult for a lot of people to play a bigger version of themselves because they are so attached to who they are in the present that they often don't give the future version of themselves a chance. So don't get so attached to who you currently are. Give the future version of you a chance.
I think that's so powerful to think about, especially when you consider that if you can do it with your voice, it is your voice. I mean, that's your authentic sound.
Yeah.
You just haven't done that yet. And I'm not being too big for me if I do this. I'm just not normally in situations where this is me. This is the presence I bring forward, but that doesn't mean that that's not my presence or not what I'm capable of. And I think that's something that you've said before that I feel resonated very strongly with me too, just right along those lines.
What I'll say here as well is we often don't understand the potential that we have access to. I mean, think about it. I often use the analogy of a piano, and it's that we want to be able to fully use our instrument and play all the different keys. We want to be able to access and become very familiar with them all so that we can access this entire instrument. Again, I'm not just, with this particular example saying you always should be loud and obnoxious because it will be bloody annoying. But it's not about not being able to do it. It's about being able to access the entire instrument so that when we need the instrument during these critical moments in our lives, we're able to access it and use it effectively and influence and potentially persuade people in a certain way. Whereas if you don't have complete access to this instrument and the only way you can play is very softly, then there's going to come a time when you need that louder voice and you don't have access to it. My wife would definitely say that you should learn to access your quiet voice more, Vin, but she's not here, so that's fine.
I don't have another question, but something I was just thinking about, and it's also because I have to find every moment I can to tell my identical twin that I'm better than him in front of large audiences. Especially around like what you mentioned, the record and review process, Vin, and to do it multiple times and just building your voice and communication skills. It's not an overnight process. And I even remember over the past year getting really frustrated sometimes, not knowing like, is my communication even improving? And I have heard a lot of people, they just don't know if they're improving.
If you use your voice well, not only will people be able to tell you apart, you will stand out in general. I mean, you should have seen, when I reflect on my experience, every time there's a room where people ask questions and I used to be so shy and I never put my hand up, but now I'm more confident now as an individual. I'll put my hand up, I'll ask a question. But even when I ask a question, I know because people come up to me, they're like, hey, who are you? What do you do? And I'm like, why are you asking me that? There were 20 other people that asked the question, but they were so intrigued by me. And what it does is it allows you to stand out. And I'm not saying it's always good to stand out, but there are times in your life where you want to stand out. So you want to do the training so that you don't just look like another Jake and another Jake's twin. You want people to be able to tell you apart from a room full of people, because often people wait until they need to stand out and then they kind of try to build that skill. If you're listening to this now and you're like, oh, there's no real need for me to improve my communication skills at the moment in my life. Hey, there is a reason to. And they say luck is when preparation meets opportunity. So don't wait to be lucky. Prepare and you'll become lucky and you will stand out and people will discover you and you will be selected for this position or this opportunity for a promotion. Don't wait for them. Don't wait for a door to appear. Build it. You absolutely can. So to me, hopefully as you listen to this, you feel inspired to begin that self-awareness journey and record that video. That's the first step you can take.
Well, Vin, I love how you mentioned that a lot of people just wait until they feel like they need to be a better communicator. And not that it's too late then, but they've missed probably a great opportunity to shine and stand out. But something that I know you talk about a lot for anyone that follows you, but specifically for those that have no idea who you are, But you always mention you're only as good as you can communicate. And at surface level, it makes sense, but like, can you dive deeper into that? What do you actually mean by you are only as good as you can communicate?
What I mean by that is, and I'll go back to the example from my life as well, and I think a lot of people can relate to this in that, early in my life, I was a magician and I focused all my time on technical skill sets. I was very good at sleight of hand, and I still remember the magician that I used to lose so much work to. His name was Mike the Magician, and he called himself Magic Mike. I always lost out to him, and it drove me insane. It absolutely drove me insane because I knew technically I was better than him. I knew my sleight of hand technically was better. And please, this is not me being arrogant. It's just an honest assessment at the time that I spent all my time on technical skill, and yet I lost out to him time and time again. And then the lesson that I learned there was that, that's because he was a better showman than me. In magic, we call it showmanship. And he had way better showmanship than me, which is a fancy word for communication skills. And what that meant that when it came to the marketplace for magicians, or any profession for that matter, it doesn't matter how technically brilliant you are. If you're not able to communicate that technical brilliance, you're only as good as you can communicate. So when I say you're only as good as you can communicate, again, you technically may be 10 out of 10, but if your ability to communicate is a 3 out of 10, will people perceive you to be a 10 out of 10? At most, they might perceive you to be a 5 out of 10. So your ability to communicate is how you amplify the best parts of who you are. So don't let yourself down. And this is one point I want to mention here as well. There's no such thing as too late. However, it's way more advantageous to learn it early rather than late. I had a student who came to my class and he was in his late 60s, right? And I fundamentally believe it is never too late. However, he said something to me that really made me feel really sad. And after he did the 3-day class with me, he comes up to me and he goes, "Oh, Vin, it's been great. Everything's been amazing. But I feel like I've only just learned how to dance and the party's about to end." So what I want to say to you all is, for many of you listening to this, your party's just started. And if you learn how to communicate now, guess what? This is a skill that now serves you for the remainder of your life. So if you learn it now and you say you're in your mid-20s or your early 30s, it serves you for the next potential 70 years. And it means you have 70 years to benefit from effective communication as opposed to 20. And I dare say that these early years of your life, these are the years where you do some of your best work. So let's do it, jump on this bandwagon and begin that process. And I promise you, you will be very grateful you jumped onto this process earlier.
Vin, thanks so much for all of this insight. This has been an amazing podcast and just conversation as always. I guess to close out, for anyone that's listening, you've given us ideas on how you can begin learning about communication skills. But if you had to pick just the one thing someone could do right now as soon as they stop listening to this, what could someone do?
I would say, after teaching this for the last 10 years, the one thing you can do that will it's like the 1% that gives you the 99% of results, I would say, is reduce the filler words in your communication and non-words. And what I mean by that is often we have ums and ahs when we communicate. Ums and ahs are the non-words, they're the sounds that we use to fill the silence. And the filler words are words like and, so, like, do you know what I mean? Let's start to reduce those as much as we can, because that robs you of clarity. It decreases the clarity of your message. It takes credibility away from you. It takes authority away from you. So to me, that would be the one thing I would say to do, is try to reduce that as much as possible. And again, this is so relevant for those who are young, because often when we're young, that's when we have a lot of filler words and a lot of non-words. And as a result, people take us less seriously. So if you want to be in a position with more authority and more credibility and people take you more seriously, that's the one thing you can do.
I love it. So for anyone that's listening, as soon as this podcast ends, record a video of yourself and take note of your filler words and your non-words.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
And Vin, you're always putting out great content. You're doing a lot of really cool things. How can anyone that's listening to this, how can they get a hold of you, or just stay up to date with the things you're doing with communication? I know you have your own podcast. So what's the best way people can stay in touch and see what you're doing?
Yeah, look, I've got a little podcast with a good friend of mine, Ali Tarai, where we talk about books that we love, and it's kind of like a book club with nerds. And, we do a book every 2 weeks. So if you'd like to check that out, you can check it out at the Vin and Ali Show. You can just search it on any of the major podcast platforms and you'll find us, the Vin and Ali Show. And essentially, you can just connect with me on LinkedIn. just search my name on LinkedIn, Vinhgiang. Let's connect. I put a lot of my content up there, and it'd be great to connect with you.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for being here, Vin.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jake, and looking forward to catching up with you and Alex soon too.
All right, Jake. Well, since I'm apparently emphasizing the host part of co-host, I'll go ahead and just kick it over to you to start the takeaways.
That is exactly what I like to hear, Alex. You're catching on quickly a little bit. So the thing that stood out to me, and there's so many great things, when Vin mentioned how people can start to improve their communication skills, he mentioned it's usually the thing that people dread the most when it comes to communication. And it's listening to yourself on audio, watching video replays. It's building that sense of awareness. And I think everyone wants to skip that part. And what are the skills? What are the tips or the tricks? But you can't skip that part, that temporary discomfort of building awareness into the areas you want to improve, the parts you maybe don't like about your communication. You have to build that awareness first to then know how to improve your communication skills, or else you're just going to continue to avoid it and you're going to be stuck at the current level of communication that you're at. So I love what you mentioned about the record and review and building that awareness first.
Yeah, I think that is powerful. You can't get where you're needing to go without understanding where you are. I think along the lines of awareness in one sense was his comment about approaching the use of your voice in a different way by increasing, the tone, the melody, the volume, and basically stretching your voice in a way that you hadn't normally done so. And he said, it's not fake or phony. It's still your voice. You are capable of making yourself sound this way. That is your instrument. You've just never played it this way. So I think that that's really important to people taking away, how to exercise their communication skills, is understand that if you can do it with your voice, it's your voice. There's nothing fake about that. And hopefully that emboldens some people to go out and do these things. That was really a primary takeaway for me. Well, that's it for this episode. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we look forward to you joining us on the next episode of Upwards.
Thanks for listening to Upwards. Be sure to subscribe on your preferred podcast platform and leave us a review. Learn more about the Microsoft Aspire experience at aka.ms/Microsoft Aspire experience. We'll catch you next time on Upwards.